ragtime, tangos, classic, some contemporary music as well. And this evening I'm playing a program called Picnic Piano, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that later on. There is a specific reason why I'm playing this, but it is a selection of many of the best of, and in fact many of the pieces that I've played in these Wednesday evening programs, particularly in the last few weeks, I am going to be including again. So I hope you're going to enjoy this well-known selection and hearing some of these favorites once more. And I'm going to introduce them as always. I'm going to start off with the very famous Sonata Facile by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Out of his sonatas, this is one of the shortest, lightest, easiest, apparently, said to be easiest, written specifically for young students or beginner pianists. Straight after that, the very beautiful, very entertaining Le Cuckoo, or The Cuckoo Bird by Louis Daquin, a 17th century harpsichord composer. You will his most successful composition, selling over 1 million copies of the printed music. But The Entertainer, probably not so well during his life, but was used as the theme tune in the movie The Sting, the film The Sting. And that's why when often people say, oh, play The Sting or play the theme from The Sting, the title of the actual composition by Scott Joplin is called The Entertainer. And in fact, The Sting's early 70s film starring Robert Redford really used Scott Joplin's music as the soundtrack, entire soundtrack of Scott Joplin's music, and brought incredible vision and acclaim and shone this amazing spotlight on Scott Joplin's music, which many people had forgotten about for many years and subsequently become such a great favorite. So this is music by Mozart, by Louis Daquin, The Cuckoo, and Scott Joplin's The Entertainer to start off this evening's piano hour of a program entitled Picnic Piano. that was 3 pieces of music to start this evening's piano hour on Wednesday, the 17th of March, ending off with The Entertainer from Scott Joplin. Before that, you heard Le Coucou, or The Coucou, by Louis Daquin, 17th century French harpsichord composer. And I started off this evening's program with the first movement, the Allegro from the Sonata Facile by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, K545. Now, the reason why I'm playing this program tonight is Picnic Piano was the first album, the first recording that I made, CD recording that I made, that I released. And it really brings together a very unique and a very critical idea and pivotal to the program, which still is Music Revival. And I'd like to tell you about that just briefly, how this came about. When I decided to come back from my studies in England, I found myself based here in KwaZulu-Natal. And I was increasingly aware that even though I was playing concerts and sometimes even staging my own classical concerts, the idea of the classical pianist was always one that person walks on stage, you play a program of some Baroque or classical music for 40 minutes, you have an interval, and then there's a program, more music of Romantic or 19th century and maybe some 20th century music for another 40 minutes, and then you leave. And if one is accustomed or versed in this repertoire or has a knowledge of it, or has grown up with it, it's very interesting. But if you don't, it's quite a bewildering experience, because this pianist arrives on the stage, doesn't say a word, just plays a lot of music that sometimes you don't recognize, and then leaves. And I decided that, in fact, in order to engage more with the community and with the people around me, I needed to change a few things around. And I did 3 important things when I started playing these concerts. First of all, I decided to include repertoire that was not of the strictly only classical material. I thought, well, anything that actually exploits the piano in a meaningful way, that is written for the piano, that is authentic, is really going to be worth playing. So I started playing ragtime and tango music and film music, as long as I was playing what was written on the score, and always trying to approach the score in the same authenticity or with the same insight as I would approach classical music. So, for instance, the ragtime would sound like ragtime and the tangos would sound like tango. Each composer, each classical style has a unique approach to it, and it's important to be able to be versed in that. The second idea is that I thought, well, instead of including pieces of music that are unknown and are obscure, I should rather try and include pieces of music that the public will recognize, because everyone loves to go to a concert and recognize the music or the melodies they are going to hear. The third element being that I also then chose to address the audience or talk to the audience and tell them a little bit about some of the music that they were going to be hearing, giving them something about the historical context or an element of what the composer had to say, or just a small detail of what they were going to hear. And also, in terms of the venues and the types of places that I was going to be playing these concerts, I started venturing out of the concert hall into people's homes and also into people's gardens. And that's where this Picnic Piano program really comes from. We had a number of wonderful performances in a historic home nearby here. What's beautiful country and the beautiful weather we live in at this time of year, especially the sunset, sitting on a historic homestead on the lawn, glass of wine, watching the sun going down, some snacks nearby with friends, and to be able to play some familiar music that's varied, well-known, beautiful tunes, beautiful melodies, beautiful rhythms, and just be able to share this music with the audience. So this Picnic Piano program, at least, is really the beginning of all of that, and the beginning of a very standard selection of music, which is why I play these pieces so often. They are critical to that core idea of what Music Revival is about. So I'm going to dive then straight into the next selection of music by Ernesto Nazareth, the South American composer, who I play a great deal of his Brazilian tangos. This is a piece called Rebelicio, referring to a specific hip movement in the Brazilian tango. The second piece, very great jump into 15th century English keyboard music by William Byrd, his Pavane for the Earl of Salisbury. And the third piece, very well-known jazz standard called Take 5. Now, many people have wondered, or many people have asked, why Take 5? Why is this piece of music called Take 5? And the simple reason, if I'm not 100% sure of this, but I would imagine, is that it is in fact written in 5 beats in a bar. The majority of music might be written in 2 beats, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or you might get a waltz, which is written in 3 beats, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 4 beats in a bar, which is 2 times 2, 1, 2, 3. But 5 is a rather unusual meter, and it consists of 1, 2, 3 plus 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Which is if you've ever tried to dance to Take 5, it'll explain why it's almost impossible. It has this unusual 5 beats in a bar. The other thing is it uses the very popular and a very standard sequence of chords known as a cycle of fifths. If you look at Vivaldi, there's a sequence of chords where the bass notes are all 5 steps apart. And in the same in Take 5, that same cycle of 5, of fifths, takes place once again. And that's the unique contrast, because the one phrase, the one section of the music is all 2 chords. It kind of hovers, it's sort of static in its persistence, very gentle persistence, and then suddenly the chords change very quickly and rapidly. As a second contrasting idea. It's such an incredibly exciting piece of music. Also, you'll see when the title comes up, it's listed as written by Paul Desmond, and I'm sure many people are going to say he's got it wrong. It's written by Dave Brubeck, and I can tell you on authority that, in fact, from the compositional setup of the piece of music, the Dave Brubeck Quartet, of which Paul Desmond was the saxophone player, they composed the entire album together, and at the end, they had to fill in forms to give recording rights and to accredit the composers. And rather than saying that all of them were involved in all the pieces, they were each allocated a specific composition. And this Take 5 was allocated to Paul Desmond, even though all of the players were involved. After his death, the rights were awarded to the International Red Cross, where it still collects royalties. So here are 3 rather unique pieces: Rebelithiol by Ernesto Nazareth, the Pavane for the Earl of Salisbury, and Take 5, Dave Brubeck Quartet, but written by Paul Desmond. The celebrated Take 5 from the Dave Brubeck Quartet there, ending that 3-play. Before Take 5, I played the 15th century, very early English keyboard music by William Byrd, the Pavane, Earl of Salisbury, and I started off that section with Rebellicio, a tango, Brazilian tango, the Rebellicio referring to a specific hip movement in the very stylized Brazilian tango dance, and that composition there by Ernesto Nazareth. I'm going to move on to 3 compositions of classical nature by Chopin, Scarlatti, and Debussy. As I said, all of the pieces tonight are really of a very popular style, a very popular nature. Certainly I've played them in recent weeks, but this, as I said, is the most condensed version, the very precise version of my picnic piano selection. And in fact, 2 of the compositions that I'm including by Chopin and Debussy are included in these programs, in this very standard introductory program, you might say, because even though they are classical compositions, their melodies have been subsequently used as popular songs, which means they are even that much more familiar to many more people. So I'm going to start off with the Fantasy Impromptu, very brilliant piece of music by Frédéric Chopin that really brings together so many elements of his style. In particular, the middle section of the piece, after the opening and the closing section, which is very brilliant. The middle section is a little bit more reflective, slower, calmer, and has this beautiful melody which was later turned into a popular song, I'm Always Chasing Rainbows. Not by Chopin, but certainly I think in the 1940s or 1950s this was reused as a popular number. The second piece of music by Scarlatti, a beautiful sonata. I include this, and I like this piece because it just has such a resplendent and very easygoing feeling of assurance, a sort of royal trumpet call, and very lyrical, very beautiful writing in its own way. And the last piece, Debussy's Reverie or Daydreaming, again, composition from the early 20th century, but the melody revised and reused as a popular song in the late 1960s. 3 very contrasted pieces. I hope you enjoy these from the classical selection. the very restful sounds there of Claude Debussy's Reverie, early 20th century composition, I think from about 1902, but turned into or reused. The melody reused as a popular song in the 1960s. And before that, I played Scarlatti Sonata, K380 in E major, and that started those three with the Fantasy Impromptu by Frédéric Chopin. I apologize for the ringing cell phone, something, I'm not quite sure why, or an iPad or something was tweeting away or binging away in the background. We've got a great length to make sure that everything is offline here, and somehow something escaped the hatch. And we've got Granny Lulu who's staring at me the whole evening. I'm not quite sure what. Granny Lulu, you have been fed. What's the problem, little girl? It's very unusual that she's just waiting, staring at me like this. I'm not quite sure. Are you feeling okay? Oh, and here's little Lucy. Yes, Lucy, I see you with a waggy tail. We've got some music coming up for you now. I think you might like the next one, possibly two. Yes, Lucy. So I'm going to carry on with another selection of three very popular melodies. I'm sure you will know these, everyone will know these, and I'm going to start off with the arrangement of the Teddy Bears Picnic. I always ended my picnic concerts or my outdoor concerts, piano concerts, with this piece of music. It's such a perfectly written arrangement of this piece, very simple arrangement but perfectly balanced. The composition by John W. Bratton, and this march, this two-step march, was later turned into the popular song with words attached to it as well, which is what everyone of course knows. So if your words don't attach or don't link up exactly to what I'm playing, that is the reason why. The second piece today, the 17th of March, is in fact St. Patrick's Day, and it brings us to the fact that I thought we should play some Irish music, and also the fact that I am actually partly Irish. My surname is Irish. Many people ask me where my surname comes from. There's two questions: where it comes from, and the second question, if it's not that, is why do I pronounce it incorrectly? It is actually Irish, and for most people who know Irish names, they always tell me that in fact my pronunciation, Duigan, is incorrect, that in fact it should be pronounced some other way, which is rather alarming. I mean, it's the way that my father, my grandfather, his grandfather, etc., pronounced the name. So it's always rather strange when you're told that you're pronouncing your own name incorrectly. But anyway, Duigan it is, and it is an Irish name, and I have a strong, apparently, Irish heritage or Irish genes in me. So I'm going to play the very famous Londonderry air, otherwise known as Danny Boy. I'm going to play an improvisation around that. And then the third piece in this section of three, a very fun little number called Dizzy Fingers by Zez Confrey, known as a novelty piano solo. It's very fast and jaunty, the title referring to the fact that the fingers go round in a very circular, dizzy pattern. to play Dizzy Fingers and then London Area. to end off this evening's selection of music, which I put together in Piano Hour. This is a selection called Picnic Piano, and I hope you've enjoyed this. This was, as I said in the beginning, one of the original selections, sort of pivotal selection of the idea of bringing music to a wider audience through piano performance, each style being insightful in its own sense, and also being able to tell people about the music a little bit. And one of the reasons that I actually have performed this program tonight, and I will also be performing a program from my album, one of also the early albums that I produced, called Nocturne Cafe, a beautiful selection of calm classical music. There were 2 albums of that, and I'll be performing selections from that on Saturday night. The reason that I performed them this week is that after many years of many people asking for this, I am in the process of uploading my back catalogue of albums which are no longer available. These tracks are often heard on Fine Music Radio and Classic FM and SABC Radio in South Africa, and they're no longer they're out of print. And so I have been busy uploading them all to various platforms. So probably by the end of the week, you'll be able to hear 6 albums of my past catalogue on iTunes, Apple Music, as well as on Spotify. And I hope you'll be able to enjoy this music playing continuously there. I'm going to play out with just one final number, seeing as again this is St. Patrick's Day, by the Irish composer Enya, female composer, and this is a beautiful number of hers called Watermark. And I'm playing it at the end because I'm not sure if the copyright police are going to actually come down on us and might cut our stream off, but I hope not. It's a very simple tune, and this will just be the final play out for this evening's program. Thank you for joining us. If you are able to support us, please of course do visit our website, where you'll find all the links, QR codes, etc., to be able to donate to this project. Thanks Barry at the controls for this evening, and this is Enya and Watermark.